Ritter Communications presents the NEA Varsity Podcast, brought to you by Tubetown and NEA Sports. Here are your hosts, Marcus Carlton and Ryan Fletcher.
Hey, everybody. Marcus Carlton, Ryan Fletcher back here for episode 13 of the NEA Varsity Podcast. Ryan, it's been a while, man. Good to talk to you again.
Yes, sir. Good to talk to you, Marcus.
Man, we've had a lot of football happen since our last episode. Last time we were together talking football, man, it was the final week of the regular season, and we've had a lot of stuff go down since then.
Well, we have. Valley View's season ended, unfortunately, but you guys have Westside still in it, and pulling for them this Friday night.
Yeah, so this has become truly a historic season for Westside in that they captured their first ever senior high football conference title by winning the 4A3 with a victory over Gosnell. And then to take it a step further, they kept rewriting history and getting their first playoff win over Hamburg. So
yeah, that's pretty awesome right there. I'm excited for Westside and for you guys to be able to cover them. And you know, each year, Coach Engel continues to move this program in the right direction. I mean, and eventually he's going to run out of ways to move forward,
right?
Because you know you can only go so far. But it's just truly been one of the top sports stories in Northeast Arkansas here in the last decade.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch this year. You know, we when we made the decision that we were going to follow Westside, you know, we just kind of stepped back and looked at it and thought, you know, they've got a lot coming back. They could have a good year this year. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that, you know, we would be able to be there when they captured their first conference title and their first playoff win both. And, you know, you talk about the future, where Engel has brought this program and where it's going to go in the future. You know, we got to throw a shout out to the junior high program too, because they went,
for sure.
They went undefeated and also won the 4A3 on the junior high level. From the historians that I've talked to out at Westside, the junior high team this year went 10-0, and that was the first football team in Westside school history on any level to go undefeated. Yeah. And it's just kind of cool to, you know, that you have one school that captures the junior high and the senior high conference title. I mean, it tells you where football has been brought up to from where it once was, because I remember several years ago, you know, when I was working at the local ABC affiliate and covering games on Friday nights, and you know, if you went to a Westside game, I mean, it was kind of like, okay, you're not going to be there very long because the opponent's going to get 2 or 3 touchdowns real quick, and then you're going to be able to get out and go to another game. And man, what a turnaround it's been over. I think Engel told me that this is his 5th year of being there. Yeah. And man, he's brought this program up to championship caliber now.
Well, it's just, you know, you talk about a turnaround in 5 years is not a long time.
No.
I mean, it is true. I mean, we have conversations about, you know, you got to get in college football. You got to give a coach so many years. And, you know, 5 years simply is not a long time. And for him to have turned things around like he has, he deserves a lot of credit. His coaching staff deserves a lot of credit. And, of course, the kids buying in and you know, doing what they've done, they deserve a great deal of credit too. But you're right. I mean, you know, I graduated in 2004, graduated from school that didn't have football. So, you know, didn't know a whole lot about and really care much about high school football back in the day. But the few things that I did know was that, you know, that was back in the days of Monk when he played at EPC. So we kind of kept up with that. And, you knew, had an idea who was decent. But you always knew that Westside was probably one of the worst teams in the area. Yeah. And it just, I mean, that's what they were known for, unfortunately. And that is just for them to go from that to this. Like I said, I mean, it is truly one of the top stories in this area for the decade.
No doubt. And you know, I had to, you know, having the West Side ties that I have, I had to get a little salty on Facebook after the Hamburg win, because I went into a Facebook group and, you know, made a post that there was one school with Jonesboro ties left in the playoffs. And then it was not the Hurricane. It was not the Raiders, and it was not the Blazers. It was the West Side Warriors. And so
there's nothing wrong with that or saying that you by all means, Westside, they deserve to make that statement and to say that they're the best team still standing, and
right.
And
I didn't do it as
to be proud of.
Yeah, I didn't do it as a slam to the other schools, but it was just, it's kind of a testament to show how far this program has come in the last 5 years. Because if you remember before Engel got there, they were getting a new coach almost every year.
I know.
It was a revolving door of coaches for several years. And then once Engel got there and got some stability into the program, and then, obviously you had some athletes come up through that help speed everything up a little bit. But, to get some stability in there, to get an actual program set up, and to get a core system that your players bought into, this is the end result of a lot of hard work, and it's pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah, well, it is, and like I've said all year long, you guys are very fortunate to be able to have covered them all season like you have. It's not every day that you get those types of seasons to follow, and that's true for whether you're in broadcasting or you're the coach or a player or a fan base. Sometimes those things only come around once every few years, and and like you said, with the junior high doing the way they're doing, the future is very, very bright for Westside, and if, like I say, if you would have told folks this back in the 90s and early 2000s, they would have been like, well, I'll bet you any amount of money that will not be the case. But it's just a different day, I guess, in Westside football, and Westside, obviously basketball has been the thing that the fan base has rallied around for a long time, because they've had some great teams. But winning cures all, and it's infectious, and this fan base is eating it up, and it's fun when you have more than one sport that has a chance to make some deep runs late in the season.
Yeah, no doubt. This is, as I said earlier, this is uncharted water. And I go back to a comment that Coach Engel gave us in postgame the other night after they beat Hamburg. He said, if you're having to set up practice on Thanksgiving Day, you've got a pretty good team. And he said this is going to be fun. So I joked with him. I said, hey, we'll just bring the turkey and dressing down here to the football complex, and you guys can have practice, and then we'll just have Thanksgiving dinner right here, because turn around on Black Friday, and then they've got Pulaski Robinson, or as people my age and above call them, Joe T. Robinson. The Senators are coming in from Central Arkansas, and to get those guys coming up here, that's a huge ordeal. And it's going to be a big one. And, I think the weather is going to play a little bit of a factor. I think it's going to play into Westside's advantage a little bit, just because of how their offense runs. We're looking at, 60-70% chance of rain all day and most of the night on Friday. So, and then you get it on home on top of that. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But, before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to go back and recap the win over Gosnell that kind of set all this in motion. Yeah. The last couple of years, Westside and Gosnell, there's been a few games there. 2 years ago, Gosnell beats Westside at Westside on touchdown in the waning seconds of the game. 5-10 seconds left in the game. Gosnell gets the go-ahead touchdown to win and move on. And I believe they won at least a share of the conference title that year. 2018, Westside goes over after dropping a heartbreaker at Truman that would have given them the outright conference title in 2018. They dropped that heartbreaker at Truman and honestly just never really got things going when they got off the bus at Gosnell. And Engel told me before the Hamburg game, we did a little pregame show, and he told me, that was probably one of the worst performances any of his Westside teams have had in such a big situation. He's like, they couldn't get over the Truman loss, and Truman essentially beat them twice,
and how often do you see that happen at any level?
Absolutely.
You lose a heartbreaker, something that you've, pinned much of your season on, and that happens sometimes. So as a Razorback fan, I always think back to, of course we've had many of those, but one game that always stands out to me that happened was when we had lost to Tennessee in '98 on that fumble by Stern.
Yes,
we turned back around the next week and lose to Mississippi State at State. ordinarily, I don't think we lose that ball game because you lose such a heartbreaker, and your season just completely deflated. So, I use that as an example of probably what happened last year.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example because it was very similar scenarios there. But it, for whatever reason, they just, and it may have been at that point, at the end of the 2018 season, they hadn't been in that position before, so they didn't really know how to handle the heartbreak of having the conference title slip through their hands. But you had a lot of those guys come back this year, and I talked to a few of the seniors this year, and they were talking about coming into that game, they remembered what happened 2 years ago, and they remembered what happened last year, and they were dead set on not letting that happen again. And Westside comes out of the gate, jumps up on Gosnell 14-0. I mean, this was a game of runs because Westside came out, jumped up 14-0. Gosnell comes back and scores 24 straight to go up 24-14. And at that point, Westside and the way their offense runs, they're not really a team that's built to come from behind. So I started to see a lot of long faces and a lot of, head scratching and a few surrender cobras, if you will. And, people kind of thinking that this game was probably going to end up just like some of the previous ones in the past. And Westside got an interception about halfway through the third quarter when it was 24-14. And it was so cool to watch because you could see the entire sideline and the entire home stands just suddenly get re-energized and be like, okay, we've got a shot now. And so Gosnell scores those 24 unanswered to go up 24-14. Westside comes back and scores 14 unanswered to take a 28-24 lead. And then Gosnell comes back once again. I mean, it's a ping pong match. It's back and forth. Gosnell goes up 30-28. And so here we are. We're getting down into the last 2 minutes of the game. Gosnell's holding on to a 2-point lead. Westside converts 2 fourth downs on what would be the game-winning drive to go down and get inside the 5. Handoff to Logan McPherson. I think he takes the handoff with about 14, 15 seconds left. Goes to the outside. They'd been running up the middle the whole game, and they sweep him out to the side, and he gets to the corner, beats the Gosnell guy to the corner, goes in for the touchdown. Westside goes up 34-30. They elect to go for 2. Fake it to McPherson, and River Engel out on a naked bootleg gets a absolutely killer block. I believe it was Dylan Russell that threw the block at the goal line that sprung him in to get the 2-point conversion, 36-30. Westside, I think there was 1 second left on the clock after the kickoff. Westside goes out and gets the stop there, because at that point it's a Hail Mary type situation or a hook and ladder or whatever kind of crazy trick play you can come up with. And Westside wasn't biting on any of it. They got the play, and when that last second ticked off the clock, I mean, just watching the celebration was really cool. I was lucky enough to get to be down on the field for that, and it was a lot of fun to see. There were, because even some of the parents and some of the former players that came down on the field, you felt like that was almost a generation's worth of frustrations, that they were able to get out and just enjoy in the celebration. And it was really cool to see. And then, that gave them the first round bye in the playoffs and gave them a chance to go on light duty for a week or so to get kind of the nicks and bangs and dings healed up of a 10 straight weeks of football, and you're going to have those little nagging injuries. And, I think that played a big role as well as the way how sharp they looked in the Hamburg game, getting that week off and getting a chance to just relax a little bit and sit back. Again, it's uncharted waters. Westside had never been in that situation. And, it gave me a chance to have a night off too and kind of go home and sit back and watch you guys have Valley View and Morrilton for that playoff game.
Yeah, and your own Brandon Reed covered for me that night. I had to go out of town, and I hated that I couldn't be there, but he did a good job filling in for us. And going back into looking at that ball game, first off, we have good football up here, but in other areas of the state, it just there are some areas of this state that football is top notch. And Valley View is a 1 seed going and facing a 4 seed. that I really don't know if Morrilton is a true 4 seed or not. I think maybe they lost a couple of games this year they shouldn't have and ended up in that 4 seed, but had one of the top players in the state and Jacolby Criswell at quarterback. And bottom line was Valley View just simply couldn't stop him. He scored 3 total touchdowns, passed for 166 yards, rushed for quite a bit too, and about 6'2", 200. And we talked about that going in, that it was going to be a true challenge for the Blazers to stop him or at least try to contain him. And unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. Morrilton ends up scoring 37 total points, I believe, against them and won at 37-27. Valley View battled, no doubt about that, but got down early 14-0 in the first quarter and made it 14-7 going into halftime, but just never could quite get over the hump and get past them. And as well as I do, the strength of that Blazer team is the defense. And for them to have given up 37, it just really, to me, it goes to show how good Criswell is. Yeah. And for those that don't know, he, I believe, is committed to play at North Carolina. Now, I will say this, our own Steve Clayton had talked with him after the ball game, and I think he's looking at that Arkansas coaching situation pretty carefully too. So, that's has been the rumor, and but I tell you what, he's a talented kid, and just tough to bring down. I mean, there were parts that I was watching the broadcast while I was traveling, and you would think they had him sacked at points, and then he turns it into one play. I remember it looked like to be a 5 to 10 yard sack, and he turns it into a 30-yard gain. So, he's pretty talented, and to go on top of that, Valley View, they were without, and I say they were without Connor Watson. Connor Watson played. He just played with a club on his hand. So, as far as trying to, really catch the football and make some things happen offensively, certainly not at 100%. And I would have liked to have seen that be the case. But, everybody suffers injuries. Unfortunately, it happened to the Blazers' best offensive weapon. So, but nonetheless, a great, great season for them. Undefeated regular season. I think if you would have told those guys that to start the season, they would have said, heck yeah, we'll take that in a heartbeat. So, obviously I'm sure wanted to go deeper into the playoffs, but proud of them and proud they got a conference championship all on their own.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for Connor Watson to have the kind of game he had with, like you said, he's basically playing with a club on his hand. I mean, he had some amazing catches in that game.
Oh, I know.
I was blown away with some of the catches that he was pulling off. And, I talked to Randy Myers after the game that night. We had our usual Friday night chat, and we were talking about Criswell's as good as advertised, and there's a reason that he's committed to a Power 5 Division I school right now.
Right.
But to go back and talk a little more on Watson, I mean, I don't think you can say enough about the performance that he turned in, all things considered.
No doubt, and that's one of those things that 5 years from now, when maybe you got some players not playing at 100%. Sean Cockrell pops that DVD in and says, "Look at what this dude did for me. He had one hand, one arm, and that's those are the type of players that really build your program up, and I know he's proud of him, and it's another very interesting story to have followed late in the season.
Well, and every team and every coach will tell you, if their season doesn't end at War Memorial Stadium, they're going to be disappointed to an extent. But Valley View has nothing to hang their heads about on this season. Undefeated regular season, outright 5A East conference title. Yeah. I mean, that's quite the accomplishment. And then, they had a couple other firsts in the year too. They finally got past Wynn. That had been a game that had kind of, they had suffered heartbreak over the last few years of getting so close and not being able to pull that game off. And then, they got that one. And then, they just basically ran through the conference. They ran through everybody.
Picked up some good, not very good non-conference win to start the season against Osceola in a game that I'll be the first to admit I didn't think they'd win, and they won it handedly.
Yeah.
So they've all season long proven a lot of folks wrong, including myself, and I'll be the first to admit that. Beat Rivercrest 7-3 in week 3, another team that that yearly is very, very good. So, it's just like you said, it's been a great season.
Absolutely. And, tip of the cap goes over to Valley View, and, hey, they get to hang a banner that says 2019 5A East Conference Champs. So anytime you can hang a banner at the end of the year, I think you've definitely got something to be proud of there.
No doubt.
And speaking of banners, I've got to talk to my Westside people now. We got to get something figured out for these Westside Warriors because they've got a banner they're going to hang as well. The first one to ever hang for football. So that's going to be pretty wild. And that set up, a second round matchup. Hamburg slipped by, I believe it was Prairie Grove. They jumped out to a big lead on Prairie Grove and just kind of had to hang on for dear life and won 28-27, I believe, was the final score of that first round matchup. And then Hamburg came in. I got a chance to talk to Coach Cecil Cossey before this game, and learned a little bit about Hamburg because I honestly didn't know much about them other than which 4A division they were in. And we got a chance to visit for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes for the pregame show that I put together. And, he was telling me that they had DJ Johnson he called him, he said he's basically our McPherson because he, 60 to 65% of our offense is built around him. DJ Johnson was injured, had a knee injury, and wasn't able to play in the playoff game. And I remember Coach Cossey telling me, he's like, you watch when we take the field, he said, we've got our walking wounded crew. Because he said we've got about 6 or 8 guys that are on crutches and had been for the past 2 or 3 weeks. And sure enough, man, I mean, there was like a second squad that came out. They all came hobbling out, and it was just, we talk about how unfortunate it is when injuries hit. They didn't have an injury bug; they had an injury plague. Because it affected several of their skill positions, and without being disrespectful to Hamburg at all, they were just outmanned. They put up a good fight as hard as they could, but Westside just had them outmanned. I think Hamburg had to put some freshmen into some positions that normally you wouldn't put freshmen in, and it showed up. I mean, I never really felt like the game was that much in question. It was Westside scored, I believe, on their opening possession, and Hamburg answered back, and it was 7-6. And then from that point forward, I never really felt like Hamburg had a what I would call a real threat to take control of the game. I mean, at one point it was 28-6. Westside was in full control. Hamburg got a couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Ended up 35-20 was the final on that game. But it was, the 28-6 to me was more of a true representation of how the game went, because it was, Westside had pretty much control. I think they had, they forced 3 turnovers on the night, 2 of those being interceptions, and then forced a fumble. Jared Garner had an interception and a fumble recovery. Brady Johnson had an interception right before half that ended a threat from Hamburg. Hamburg was driving towards the end of the half, and Brady Johnson made a spectacular interception on the sideline and basically shut that down. And Westside was able to take a knee and went into the half. And then, they come back out, and the touchdowns that Hamburg was able to get late in the game, they were one was a busted coverage. And then the other one, I don't know if there was just a miscommunication in the secondary on the second one, but it was one of those plays that seemed like that, maybe you had a cornerback that was playing zone and a safety that was playing man, because the cornerback let him go by thinking he had help over the top, and he didn't have the help, and it resulted in 6 for Hamburg. But Westside came right back and took about 6.5, 7 minutes off the clock with their offense like they do, and went down and got one more final touchdown there to put the dagger basically in Hamburg and move on. to face Pulaski Robinson, Joe T. Robinson, whatever you want to call them, this week in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. So I mean that'll be a big one.
It will, and kind of looking ahead to them. I mean they've got some offensive playmakers on this team. Westside's going to be challenged in the passing game and trying to stop the run because they've got balance, and they got a quarterback that's thrown for over 2,000 and 33 touchdowns on the year, and then they've got a running back that's rushed for 1,400, averaging, about 10 yards per carry, which that's in Logan McPherson territory in terms of yards per carry. Now, not nearly the number of yards he's accumulated over the season, but
that's about 3 games work for McPherson right there.
Yeah, so. True, very true. So, but yeah, they've got their hands full. But when you get to this point in the season, you're not going to run into anyone that's not very good.
Right. Well, and I was talking with one of the Westside fans he's kind of over the Pee Wee program there, and he was telling me, we were talking about that this style of offense is just it's fun to watch because the defense knows what's coming, and it's like, all right, here it is, stop it if you can, if not, get used to getting run over. And he was telling me, he's like, this style of offense is built for the playoffs because you go down, you score. You get the ball back, you go down, you score again, you start demoralizing the defense because they know what's coming and they just can't man up and stop it. So that, it'll be interesting to see if Westside gets that opportunity because as you pointed out, man, Pulaski Robinson has some real weapons on offense and they're very balanced. I was looking at some stats before we started recording the podcast here. They're averaging about 205, 206 yards passing a game and about 215 or 220 rushing. I mean, you can't get much more balanced than that.
Right.
So
I mean, that's the first thing that popped in my head when I was taking a look at those statistics. I mean, they can beat you. Yeah. In a multitude of ways. And their quarterback and their running back, their main running back, both of those guys are juniors. Now, some of the wide receivers that they have are seniors, some of their high yardage guys, but two of your main skill positions there, you're going to have them coming back next year. So, and Robinson is just, I mean, they're just Robinson. The last few years, man, they've made deep runs into the playoffs, and their only loss this year is to Arkadelphia. And I mean, everybody that follows high school football in Arkansas knows how good Arkadelphia is. Yeah. So it's I think Westside's got their hands full, but the one thing that that works to their advantage is Robinson's got to come up here. Robinson's got to come to Northeast Arkansas. They've got to get on a bus. They've got to ride 2.5, 3 hours, whatever the drive is going to be. And it's just in the playoffs, when you're not in that familiar surrounding, it can play a role. Now, how big a role it plays, that depends on Robinson's mindset coming into the game and how sharp a focus Westside has. But needless to say, we're gonna have a good game Friday night. It may be wet and it may be soggy, but we're gonna have a good game. Well, and in looking at that weather report, how do you think that fares for Westside? I mean,
in my opinion, I would think that would have to favor Westside.
I think so too.
Just simply because they don't put the ball in the air a whole lot. Right. Now they did have one passing touchdown the other night against Hamburg. And I think that was strategic. By Engel to be like, okay, you want to stack the box on us? Okay, well, here, we're just going to go over the top to Jared Gardner.
And I think you got to do that on occasion. Yeah. Because bottom line is you're going to catch. I mean, if there have been games here in the last few where I think Logan had 40 attempts in a game.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you're giving it off to Tyler Ray. I mean, you would think running out of that play action that there's going to be some opportunities to score easily. It's just a matter of River putting it into his receiver's hands. So, I think at the end of the day, you got to do a little bit of that on occasion.
Yeah, no doubt. And I believe that was the Gosnell game where McPherson had, I believe it was 49 carries. And
that's such an amazing number.
Yeah.
I want to say that me and Brandon Reed were talking about that, and he was like, I didn't realize how many carries he had until after that game was over. But, first of all, you're never going to question how many carries he gets because, I mean, he's the best player on the football field.
Right.
And I could go all day talking about him because he's just an unbelievable talent.
Yeah, and I got a chance to visit with him the other day when I was putting together the pregame show for the playoff game, and he's such a good kid.
He is a good kid. And the thing he was on the cover of the magazine this year. I didn't really get to spend as much time with him as I wanted to because I've kind of learned now that kids would far rather text their answers to me than do an interview, just because it's a little more nerve wracking. And then they can think about what they want to say. And the part I like that part of it. It actually kind of makes it easier on me in terms of transcribing an interview too. But I don't quite get to, talk to him like I would like to. But I've kept up with him. I follow him on social media, and I'll message him every once in a while and just say, good job, great, love following you guys. And he's super talented. I mean, it's just he truly is super talented.
Yeah, and it's another game at home, so I got to talk to him a little bit about what it means for this program to be in the position that they were in. And this was before the Hamburg game, just the fact of winning the conference and getting the first round bye and hosting a playoff game. And, he and Caleb Whitmire and Brady Johnson were the three players that I got to talk to, three seniors that have basically seen the evolution of this program. And so it was kind of cool to get their perspective, because it's going to be different than that of what you or I want to have, because they've been on the inside. They've probably seen a lot of the foundation being put in place that maybe you don't see on Friday nights. It was fun, man. It was really good. And this is it's hard for me to get a feel for this game, though, just simply because I'm not real familiar with Robinson.
Well, and that, the same here. And when you start talking about those teams from other parts of the state, I mean, that is always a factor. You don't know as much. I mean, even Coach Engel, I mean, I know he's gotten video and stuff on him, but he probably hasn't had the opportunity to go and travel and maybe go watch them play or whatever. So but same can be said for them coming up here against Westside. I mean, you can look at the stats all night, and obviously when you see a kid with over 2,000 yards rushing, that's the guy you're going to target. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of unknowns going into this game for both teams. No doubt.
And it'll be a fun one. And we'll have it on Tubetown this Friday night, Black Friday, or, maybe since we're going from a West Side slant on it, maybe we should call it Red Friday.
Friday, yeah.
Just, to keep the home team on the forefront there. But 6:50, 6:55, somewhere in that neighborhood is when we'll go live on Facebook and YouTube and our Amazon Fire Stick app. And Andy Manus, and we're bringing back Ryan Short for this one. Not Ryan Johnson, Ryan Short. I'll get your name right there, bud. Ryan worked for us all of last year and then moved out of the area, and I got a text from him the other day. It said, "Hey man, I'm moving back home. When you need some help on some Tubetown broadcasts, just shoot me a text." And lo and behold, Blake Gwynn's going to be out of town this week for the holiday, much like pretty much everybody else. Sure. And it was an opportunity for Ryan Short to step back into that color commentary role, and he and Andy are going to reunite. So I'm looking forward to that, and not looking forward to the rain and trying to keep all my equipment dry and keeping it all from getting too wet, but we'll make it work. We've dealt with that a few times this year, so we'll be ready for it. And I'm hoping with it being the holidays and everything, once the stadium gets full, maybe we have a lot of people tuning in from home as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it good. First off, wishing you all the luck in the world in dealing in the rain situation. That's obviously a challenge for you guys, but nonetheless, y'all have got something to truly look forward to, and what a game for him to be able to step back into and color commentate.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm back. You got a game for me.
Yeah.
We did the quarterfinals matchup in the playoffs.
Yeah. First ever quarterfinal game for Westside. So, in the state playoffs. So you can come right in and jump right into the fire with us. And, and then, speaking of jumping into the fire, man, we're about to get into a lot of overlap here between football and basketball. I know that, as we're recording this podcast, I know later tonight, Westside has their first home basketball game for the boys. The girls have already played several games. The boys have been in a tournament, but they've not had a home game yet. And so they've got their first home game tonight. And, Coach Whitmire will be without a few players because they're still in football mode.
Yeah, it's just that time, and a lot of teams are challenged with and facing the question: do we go ahead and play without some of our guys? And I think most are, decide, yeah, we need to do that. We need the experience and getting out there.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I believe it's Rivercrest tonight. Is that
yes,
correct?
That's correct.
And Keith Campbell, the house voice for Westside, was very excited about that tonight. So I think that's a great matchup too.
Yeah.
Rivercrest has about 4 guys coming back that started or saw significant minutes for them last year. I think they've got a talented team, and the Warriors are going to be challenged right out of the gate. So that'll be fun to watch. But just obviously our smaller schools have been playing for, they've probably got 10 games under their belt now at least. So
no doubt.
We're very close to that. Our first basketball game we cover is December the 13th. It's Osceola at Manila. You know how big of a deal that is.
That's
so
huge.
that is our opening game, and
wow.
You couldn't ask for a better opener, and really a really good schedule. Probably to as far as I'm concerned, it's the best schedule we've ever put together in terms of close games and competition. So, but looking forward to that. But with that being said, on the brink of starting some basketball coverage this Sunday night on Fox at 9 p.m., the NEA Sports Show will premiere. It's our annual show, third year in a row to have that. Myself will have Dr. Garrett Weaver, Chip Lane, and Dustin Osmond as a crew we always assemble. And it's a James Bickham production, and you know how well he does with his
Bickham's
productions.
Great, man. He's so good.
He is, and he always finds a way to take it to a different level. And he's incorporated some different things here and there this year that I really like. And, as a basketball fan of this area, I would highly encourage you to tune into that Sunday night at 9 on Fox. And when I say Fox, it is the Fox channel. Yeah. I mean, it's the big one.
KJNB.
KJNB. So hooking up and partnering with them, and it'll re-air on December 14th at 5. That's on a Saturday, and you guys are going to y'all are going to show that on the Tubetown channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some as well. So lots of opportunity to watch that and just kind of just get a little snippet of several teams from around the area.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking through your schedule right now, and I'm circling games that I'm going to have to be sure and watch. And it starts off with that first one, man. That's a rematch of the district finals of the 3A conference from back in February that we actually had on Tubetown. We had the Osceola Manila game there, and then I think it's pretty cool that you guys are starting off with a rematch of that game. It was a classic, man. It went to overtime and ended up a 2-point game, I believe is what it was. Yeah. So I expect more fireworks there and for it to be another really good one.
It will be. And actually, we have, looking at that schedule, we've got 2 rematches of district finals because we've also got Bay and Rector on the schedule. That'll be a big matchup in that 2A conference. Manila, again, they're going to face Ashdown, who I believe was the state champ last year. That's on a Saturday. Got some girls games mixed in there. Nettleton, Jonesboro, Brooklyn, Valley View, Brooklyn Westside. So Riverside BIC factored in a lot of rivalry games. Also, Greene County Tech Paragould. Really excited to cover that one, and I'm really, really excited to watch Zane Butler play this year because that dude can play.
Yeah, he's off to a really good start. I saw a stat line of his the other night where he had a really good game. Just missed a triple-double, I believe, is what I saw in the stats. So I mean, it was that'll be fun to watch as well, man. And as always, there's a lot of basketball talent, boys and girls both, on this side of the state here in Northeast Arkansas. Yeah. That's historically what they're known for. So it's going to be another fun season, man. And hopefully we can keep this overlap going and keep talking a little football as we get deeper and deeper into basketball season. And maybe about the time that we're finally ending football, it'll be time for the NEA to start up.
We'll be right around the corner, and I hope Westside can pull one out again this week. If they're anything, they're confident going in this week. So that always factors into any situation. So looking forward to watching your coverage and hoping they can pick up a win on Black Friday.
All right. Well, that's just about going to put a bow on episode 13 here of the NEA Varsity Podcast. Ryan, man, it's been fun, and we'll do it again. Win or lose Friday night for the Westside Warriors, we'll come back and do it again, and we'll either put wraps on the football season, or we'll talk about making the Final Four and have another preview. But either way, we'll do that, and then we'll talk basketball on top of that.
Looking forward to it, and I want to wish everyone, including you and your family, a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much, and the same back to you and to all of our listeners out there. And I have to say this one last time, if you've not subscribed to the NEA Varsity Podcast yet, get on your favorite podcast provider and hit the little subscribe button and hit the little notifications tab that's with it. That way you'll know anytime we have a new podcast coming up, and we're going to keep this rolling through basketball season and on into spring sports as well. So for Ryan Fletcher, I'm Marcus Carlton, and you have been listening to the NEA Varsity Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the NEA Varsity Podcast, a production of Ritter Communications, brought to you by Tubetown and NEA Sports. Be sure you're subscribed to the NEA Varsity Podcast to get the latest episodes. Tubetown is a community partnership of Ritter Communications.